What's going on, ladies and gents? Your boy David Gamma repping SygacityGamers, and I'm here with the one and only Skisonic. We're still at final round, last day of the event, and just gonna ask a few questions. You guys may have heard of him, seen him. I'm sure if you're in the FGC, you should know who he is. But for those that don't know exactly who Skisonic is and what he does, would you mind sharing?
I'm a long-time participant of fighting game tournaments, and what I've become known for is doing commentary for live events. Street Fighter and Street Fighter derivatives kind of really got my name as far as that's concerned in Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and I've just kind of kept doing it since then. I really enjoy fighting games. I enjoy talking about them. I enjoy breaking them down and bringing like the love and the energy and compassion home to everybody. The passion, not compassion, the home to everybody that isn't able to attend. So that's pretty much what I'm doing at a lot of these tournaments with less time to play, but I love talking about the games.
Oh man, that's great, man, because we're definitely gonna pick his brain. So you said that you play Marvel 2. It kind of sounds like you went from in front of the scenes to behind the scenes. Which one do you enjoy more? Is there a difference, or you're just glad to be a part of the scene?
Yeah, I'm just happy to be doing my thing, because back in the day when I started with really in the Marvel 2 era, I looked at the more experienced players, the older players, the people who had been around at the time that I wasn't and were able to recount stories and talk about how it was. Those were the people who shouldered the burden of making sure that we had somewhere to play. Those were the people that were organizing events, making sure that we had consoles, making sure that people showed up on time and all that stuff. I was just showing up, paying my money to play, and then, doing whatever in between. So as time progressed and I saw what everybody was doing, and I, gained respect and admiration and friendship for all of these guys, and I wanted to help out and become a part of it. And that's the reason that the FGC became a thing. It was already a community before we even gave it this acronym. It was just a scene. It was just tight-knit people that shared passion, and because of that we were able to come together. So I just wanted to do my part, and I started going from brackets to I've run my own events. I co-ran events, and I've run my own events. Commentary at some of the biggest events, and even now I'm going to school for game development and stuff. So just all different aspects because I just love games, competitive games, and being a part of the whole thing.
Wow, man, thank you for that answer. That was really good. For those that are watching at home, right, on YouTube, they love fighting games, but for whatever reason they're a little shy or intimidated coming to a tournament or even doing anything that you just said. What are some suggestions? Because I think there's a group that might think the FGC is like a cult. You need to have a certain kind of disposition, a personality, or you need to look a certain way. But I would say you're an OG, so you've been around and seen a lot of different types of people. What would you say to help those people that are kind of on the fence about hopping in? And how would you even say you can be a part of this community?
I think off the jump, it's like a lot of other games where having a friend, a buddy, a training partner, something like that will really help you stick with it, when things aren't going well, because this is a competitive thing. It's easy to lose, and it's easy to lose very badly, and sometimes just having that support system is really the thing that'll keep you coming back. That's a lot of the reason that I kept going to tournaments when things were tough at certain times. I've gone to a number of tournaments and gone 0-2 or 1-2 and 2-2. That's just a thing that happens while you're trying to learn and get better. So having somebody that can go and chop it up with you, maybe comment on your matches that you were playing that you weren't able to really parse during the time, that's one thing that I think is great. And if you don't have somebody in your area, maybe you make a friend or two online. There's a lot of great resources for that now. And the other thing is, like I said, I went 0-2 number tournaments, 1-2, 2-2. And one thing that I've noticed about a lot of spectators or people that have come out to their first or second major, I ask them how are you doing? And they'll say, oh, I didn't enter. And I think if you're here and if you're taking all this time to come out and play, you may as well just pony up that extra $10 and at least try to get a tournament experience. Sometimes things don't go well. Sometimes you might even get DQ'd because you weren't at the bracket when you actually were, and little things like that happen. That's all part of the experience. But at the end of the day, get your feet wet in the tournament match and get those jitters out, because your mind works differently. And I can just say, my hands shook for the first probably year or so of going to tournaments. Whenever I got there to play, even when I felt like I wasn't nervous and I had everything down and I was ready to play, hands still shaking, and it just took a long time to get the jitters out. Like, don't be intimidated about that kind of thing. Don't be afraid to lose. Losing is a learning process, and always try to take something from that, and that's something that you're going to hear the best players say.
All right, wow, wonderful, man. Thank you for that. And so I'm glad that you mentioned the support thing, man. It sounds like sometimes you're going to have to hold that out, and it's good to have some extra hands to help you hold that. That's the way I look at it. So, right. So now, with that said, without giving away too much, I'm not trying to figure out how old you are or young you are. What was the very first fighting game that you played? Like, what kind of brought you into this whole love and passion of fighting games?
Competitively, well, primarily, I was around when Street Fighter 2 was out in the arcades, but I was a little kid. I would watch my brother play and like older dudes play, and always just try to get in. And I don't know, I felt like I was the best. I don't remember, but as far as I'm concerned, I was the best ever. There's nobody could mess with me, or so I thought. Yeah. So later on, I got into I found some friends that also liked these games that I went to school with. Before it was just kind of me, really, just me. I loved the fighting games. My brother kind of got out of it, this is casual stuff. Kind of moved out, wasn't around, but I still love these games. I always try to find somebody to play at. I go to birthday parties or whatever. Oh, you guys want to play Street Fighter? I'm the best. Let's go. All that kind of stuff. But when I found friends that wanted to play with me, we started to play Alpha 3, Marvel 1 a lot, but Marvel 2 dropped during that time. So it was like we got in on the ground floor of that game, and that's the reason why I stuck with it, and I felt like I knew the whole game, like the whole history of the game. I felt like I was there for, honestly. So that's the game that holds a special place in my heart. I always call myself like a Marvel kid, but at the same time, Capcom vs. SNK 2 that came out in the same era was the game that I think I was competitively best at, and I had my best tournament, my most consistent tournament results in. So those two, they held a special place in my heart. They're kind of a tie. But I love so many different games.
Okay, cool, man. And it seems like there was a lot of Capcom going on, man. So you're real loyal to the Street Fighter series, and overall, it seems like you love Capcom. Now, that's good, man. With that said, then, before we talk about Street Fighter 5, that's the big thing going on right now. I just want to know, do you have a all-time favorite fighting game? I don't care if it's Art of Fighting, some World Heroes, whatever the case is. Is there a game, whether it's competitive or not, that you just love to play, and even to this day, you'll play it?
I gotta say, if I were to sit down and pick a game to play in casuals, it would probably be Marvel 2, but it needs to be like when I'm good at the game, when I'm like in practice, right? Exactly. If I sit down and play any of these, in fact, I did recently. Sat down and played somebody in Marvel 2.
Crazy reaction.
This guy's not young. He's my age. He's just played the game in the last few years, right? It's his main game still, right? I play what's competitive, right? Like, I'm playing what people are playing because I love competition so much in this realm, right? So I go with the crowd to an extent. I'll always play like a new game, like when Guilty Gear was fresh. I'll try to jump into that. Anything that's new. For me though, like, if I could sit down and just play Marvel 2, even though it's, crazy balance and all these kinds of things, if I'm good at it, I feel really good about that. And I'm also just a fan of all the Versus series, but I could say Vampire Saviors, I think, like, an incredibly balanced game that's really fun to play, and if I had competition in that, for me, really, like, it boils down to competition. Like, that's going to make me want to play the game more and more. And if it's a good, fast game, those are the things that I like.
Okay. Cool, man. And speaking of Versus, real quick, if you could create a new Versus series, it doesn't matter the franchise or the developer, what two series or what two companies would you want facing off against each other, and why?
How about we do something like Disney versus Marvel, right? Because that's all in-house, and we don't have to worry about the properties getting weird, right? That's one thing. And then maybe winner gets DC, right? Then we make that happen, man. But there's the one that I would give the sickest shout out to is Sammy vs. Capcom that never happened, but was actually supposed to, and we were expecting it to have Vampire Savior versus Guilty Gear. Never happened. That would have been amazing. And I always think about that when we say versus games.
Well, we still have time to maybe make that happen. So, all right, Street Fighter V, that's the big game that everybody's talking about playing. What are your initial thoughts on the game? Of course, it's still like in the first version of it. However, what do you think about the game now? And if you have any gripes, what changes are you looking forward to?
I mean, I like it a lot right now, and I'm like kind of a wait and see type of person on these types of things a lot. I think it's shaping up to be a very good game, and I think right now it's good. Like I really don't have any major complaints. There's always going to be a few issues with what is essentially like an elaborate puzzle, and you're like making all these, you're putting pieces together, but the puzzle is changing, right? So maybe some characters need some tweaks here and there, but that's kind of
Comes with the territory.
Exactly, comes with the territory, things that you would expect. But I think that the systems work well. I think that the designs of the characters overall are good. I think that the presentation is good, and really the types of things that I would like to see are just overall improvements on the presentation, like outside of an actual match, and that's what it got a lot of flack for in the release, for good reason. It feels like it kind of was pushed out the door before everything was fully cooked. So the online play had some issues, and there's still some options that I would like to see there. More options with the friends list and abilities to like really interact with people. I don't even know if there's real chat yet. I don't think there's that. All these. Lots of little things like that I think could just make the experience better, and even more nods directly to the community. Like the one thing that I expected to see right off the jump, and I'm a little surprised to not see, is some direct branding of what you see of the community stuff, right? Like I was expecting an EG branded some character, right? If like an EG Rufus in the last one would have been like ridiculous, right? Or the training mode, right? The training mode stays, but it's Evo themed, or it's DreamHack themed, or it's Final Round themed. You get their colors, but the logo, but it's still the grid, because everybody just wants to play on the damn grid anyway. So you can have some variety and represent this. There's so many, I think, ways to take it even further, and I think that they're trying to do that. But I think there's a lot more opportunities, and that's the kind of stuff that I'm really anxious to see, because I think they're in the right direction on the gameplay, honestly.
Okay, and that's pretty cool. I think a lot of people share your sentiments too. The game felt like a high-level demo for the most part. It was just kind of bare bones, and you see that all over the place. So you're not saying nothing too different from the general consensus. Now, Street Fighter V introduced something called a rival search, where you can kind of look for people that you're particularly trying to fight against, and they also have rival replays, etc. Is there anyone, even though you're behind the scenes, is there anyone that you consider to be a rival? Like they're just so good that you rarely beat them or you never beat them. Is there anyone that you're out to kind of settle the score with? And if so, who and why?
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of that thing where I remember some of my close losses, and maybe I would like to have that run back just to say, I was able to get that back under my belt. But Street Fighter V is kind of like a fresh playing field, and I've been playing online a bit, but not like I haven't run into anybody multiple times yet, right? Nobody that rivalry has really started to flare up with yet. So I'm at the point now where like tournament like this, I actually didn't get to enter, right? Because I was so busy with commentary and all that I have less time to develop my rivalries. But if I'm ever up against a friend or somebody that I know, I'm gonna beat that ass, because I'm not gonna be on the ride home and hear you talking about it. So that's kind of what it boils down to me, because I got a lot of friends now at this community, been doing this for years.
Right, and that's fair enough. It sounds like I have to ask that question maybe in a year. Yeah. Then we'll have some rivals in place. Right. So now, I guess this would be the final question. Street Fighter 4, right? Especially for the OGs like yourself, unanimously they can all say that game revitalized the fighting game community. There was a moment where it was kind of stagnant. Those that are really passionate like yourself might have always knew who was in the inner circles. Street Fighter 4 hit the scene. It was like an explosion of new faces everywhere. We had ages from like 5 to 50. And with that said, right, I'm not sure if Street Fighter V is gonna have that same impact, but speaking of the impact Street Fighter 4 has had, since Street Fighter 5 is fairly new, we got to give it some time. What are you hoping to see in the next 5 years? Because again, I was at Final Round 5 years ago, and I was asking all these questions like, what do you think of sponsorships, fighting game leagues, all these things that actually happened in the last 5 years? You know, we had so many things happen. So what are you hoping, as one of the guys behind the scenes that's really passionate about this community, to see within the next 5 years? Where do you think is going to go, and where would you like the community to go?
I think right now it's a real transition period. You have the Capcom Pro Tour that's getting bigger, and there's becoming less weekends available for different events. Something like Final Round is growing out of proportion. So the kind of thing that I want is to see people be able to like get a firm grip on that, whether it be more cooperation between tournament organizers and more cooperation from the developers themselves, so that things can kind of be a little bit more, you know, flow a little bit more like clockwork, you know, just feel like things a little bit more fluid, things are a little bit more in tune, because that's the kind of thing that we're seeing, I think, from, if you want to compare to other competitive video games like StarCraft, like Dota, like League of Legends, like CSGO. The companies are taking, they're taking various levels of like hands-on, hands-off approaches, but it seems like they interface a little bit more. They're able to lend a little bit more of a helping hand, and don't get me wrong, I feel like we're in the right direction, but I want to see it a little bit better. You know, I don't want to see issues at tournaments where people feel like they had a bad experience and it's because the tournament was overwhelmed, you know, and I want to see this. It's hard to kind of get information around sometimes, you know, players aren't always aware that something's going on, you know, it feels like there's a lot of cohesion that could happen, and that's what I want to see, you know, and bring in all the fighting games, you know, Pokken and Smash Brothers and all of this stuff. We don't need to all be at the same events, because with the space, we're not going to have it, but more just like central information sources and everything, so that when people are getting a little bit older or having a little bit less time, but they still want to stay involved, they have more resources to kind of go back to and just say, okay, here's what's happening, here's what I missed, if I want to play, here's how I get up to speed and all that. And I think that kind of stuff is coming. I think that people are of that mindset, but I still think we have some ways to go.
Wow, that was a powerful answer, man. You dropped so many gems. I'm gonna have to watch this like 10 times to really soak it all in. You said a few interesting things that stuck out to me too, because one of the things I noticed in the last 5 years, as you said, the developers, tournament organizers, there's a lot of opportunity and growth. Like, we have all of these new applications now to record and capture gaming. It's like it's a new market as a result of the FGC. So you said something that just clicked, and I'm like, yo, someone make an app. Based on what Skisonic just said, there's an app that should be created to keep everyone in touch. You know, we have some jet setters in the community that just fly all the time. Maybe they're in a hotel room and then they get a pop-up, hey, you're gonna be fighting in 10 minutes. And I mean, that's just an idea. You said some really cool things, man. So I'm really glad that you gave that kind of answer. And hopefully someone out there is gonna take advantage of it, because I've already seen things happen as a strict result of the FGC. There's so many new, I don't wanna say these software names, but we know who they are. They only exist because we exist. And I think that's a really cool thing. We have a lot of talented people who may be able to take some of what you said and make something happen. So great answer, man, absolutely. Yo, thank you for, you know, staying here with us and talking and chopping it up. Is there any final words, anything you want to share with the people, anything you want to say before we close it out?
Shout out to Keats. Shout out to NYU Game Center. Shouts out to Ultra Chen. And shouts out to Chris Seglia and everybody else. I love you.
Haha, that's it. Your boy David Gamma signing out with Skisonic. We're at Final Round Table Discussions. Peace and love.